today. Basically, I was diagnosed 5 years ago with Parkinson's disease, but I have had symptoms for 7 years, so it gives you an idea. I'm not yet one of the daddies, so to speak, who have had it for 10, 15, 20 years, but at the same time, I have a few years of personal experience. And during those years...
Right.
Just, do you mind muting yourself, please? I will mute you, actually, it will be easier. So the reason I'm presenting tonight to you is that I have been interviewing some of the best specialists in the world about Parkinson's over the last 3 years, and I have gained a lot of information that is also accessible to you. If you go to our website, you will see the next pages have it, which is called No Silver Bullet for PD, but just wait until I get to the next page and you will see the address. And there you can find tons of information. So what I will do today is to tell you what I have done over the last few years, the routine I have developed, which I think is helping me with Parkinson's. It has helped me increase my energy levels, definitely control my anxiety. So I'm admitting new people joining us. My anxiety, reducing the brain fog I was feeling when I was getting up in the morning, improving my balance, regaining my sense of smell. Now, I don't know how important the sense of smell is to all of you, but actually, I think to me, I can smell flowers again. I can smell food again, which I had lost for quite a few years. Some of the things that are really not suitable for everyone. Like, for instance, I'm using virtual reality, I'm using red light therapy. Those things are not for everyone, but actually I'm sharing it more for inspiration and to give you a sense for the variety of things that you can do. And there are many things I don't do that would be very suitable to you. So for instance, dancing, singing, and art in general, that's never been my forte. But actually, I would really encourage you to explore those activities, especially if you have a liking for them. Now, I'm well aware people will not have the same amount of time that I have to basically do the routine that I do. And some people, I don't think it's the case watching you, but it could be that people watching this recording will feel that they are, for instance, wheelchair bound or not able to do the same things that I'm doing. So clearly, this is really more of an example for inspiration than something that needs to be followed to the letter. Let me just go. Here we go. So the first thing I would say is that it's very important, in my view, to realize that actually medicine is not, it's actually very important. It's important to try to incorporate it in your routine. Let me just check one thing, please. I have many people waiting, I need to admit them. So it is very tempting when you have been newly diagnosed to try to avoid medicine as long as you can. It was made, this is that feeling that actually it's early days, those drugs can potentially have negative side effects, and actually it can be part of a denial process to try to avoid the medicine as long as you can. I think this is a mistake. I think personally, I started taking levodopa quite early on. I remember going out to the restaurant with my wife and finding out that actually I couldn't use chopsticks anymore. And it started ruining my evening, and it started ruining her evening as well. So if you want, my quality of life was one thing, but the quality of life of the people around me was impacted by my nervousness that was making me basically not enjoy what should have been an enjoyable experience. So I think that taking medicine early is something that I would consider doing, I would recommend, or at least not today artificially until your quality of life has deteriorated and you have no more choice. I was recently talking to a friend of mine who has been diagnosed 5 or 7 years ago like me and hadn't been taking levodopa at all. And he was trying to recreate levodopa by using mucuna and trying to find carbidopa as an adjuvant to recreate his levodopa, which was basically nonsensical. You might as well take the levodopa directly. So it's important to, as the main pillar, medicine is a very important pillar of managing your symptoms. Now, at the same time, it's also extremely important to realize that actually there is much more to do than just, and that's what I'm going to talk about. On one hand, it's very important, as if it was. Oh, here we go. That's how it works.
Michel,
So
sorry.
the main
Michel, sorry.
pillar, aside from...
You are recording this? Sorry.
Yes, I'm recording this, Beatrice.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yes, I'm recording it. So the main pillar, aside from medication, is exercise. And I think that if you go to the website, you can see it now at the bottom of your screen, nosilverbullet4pd.com. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you can find a session by a very eminent professor, Bas Bloem, who is a Dutch professor, one of the world leaders in Parkinson's disease. And you can easily convince yourself that actually exercise is probably the most potent thing you can do to manage your symptoms. This definitely can help you manage your symptoms, probably and very likely helps you slow down progression. And as Bas Bloem was saying, there is no proof of that, but maybe one day we will find out that actually exercise can even slow down to the point of stopping the disease, but that is more hypothetical. So this is the most important thing you can do. And I think that actually what Bas Bloem says is that you should exercise for 30 minutes, 3 times a day, 3 times a week, to the point that you are panting. So you're basically out of breath, slightly out of breath. I think that actually, as far as I'm concerned, I started following training session by a lady called Sydney Cummings on YouTube, and I have now designed my daily 50-minute routine using weights and stretching exercise. Now, to be frank, some of those sessions on YouTube are designed for people who don't suffer from Parkinson's, and very clearly they can be a stretch because they just ask you to jump up and down, to just sit down, to stand up, to do things basically that could be harmful if you even try to do them. But those exercises can be a good inspiration to have an all-around routine. And I don't think it's a question of becoming Schwarzenegger about building muscle mass, but it's important to understand the impact of exercise on your brain. So it's not just about your muscles, it's about the impact it has on the gray matter and the white matter of the brain. Aside from strength and flexibility, I do endurance exercises every day. It tends to be 30 minutes of indoor bike or cross-training sessions. I also go outside when the weather allows. In the UK, it's not every day, for 1-hour walks or 2-hour walks. So you will see it at the end of this presentation. I will have a full recap of my routine, but I do exercise for an hour and a half every day, 2 hours every day. My balance is not perfect by a long stretch, but it has improved versus my early days with the condition 5 years ago. And I think this is, I started doing some yoga and Tai Chi. I have discontinued that, but I think that actually the rest of what I do helps me as well. And then the hands, everyone has a different set of symptoms. For me, rigidity in the hands and the arms is a real problem. And I do 20 minutes of exercise for my hands and fingers every day. I can share a video of exercises if you want afterwards. This has frankly helped me regain some of my writing capabilities. In particular, I remember a few years ago, I tried to write a birthday card to my teenage daughter, and I was unable to do it. It was extremely despairing. And since I've been doing those exercises every day, I have regained the ability to write. Now, funnily enough, I had someone, because I also post on Instagram and TikTok, and someone was telling me that he used to play the guitar, and those hand exercises has allowed him to regain the ability to play the guitar. So one of my main messages here as well is that some of the things that will be affecting you can be reversed, maybe not forever, because actually it is a permanent struggle, if you want, to slow down the progression of the disease. But you should not assume because you can't do something today that you will never be able to do it again. I gave the example for some of you who had not joined us yet, but I gave the example of swimming when I realized 3 or 4 years ago that I could no longer swim. And then two years ago, I regained that ability to swim. And I think this is thanks to my exercising every day. So I never was a great swimmer. I'm not as good as I used to be in my best days, but I'm definitely, again, able to tread water safely, while at some point I would just have drowned if I had fallen into the sea. The taking care of my body on a daily basis includes also exercising my brain. Now, every day I use apps such as Elevate, Peak, or Lumosity for 30 to 45 minutes a day, every day. This is like weekends and weeks included. And I think that it just plays a part, it's not only fighting off Parkinson's, it's something about aging, right? That we need to train our bodies and our brains. And that can be quite fun. I'm taking care of my sleep. It is a very sensitive point and very tricky. When I was early diagnosed, I was sleeping like a baby. Then I started losing my sleep quite bad, and melatonin was helpful. Now, after a while, melatonin was not enough, and I started having 3 hours sleep, 3 to 4 hours sleep every night. And the problem with that is that it's debilitating. It's not just giving you a bad day, just basically preventing you from exercising and from living a normal life. So nowadays, what I'm doing is that CBD and THC, which is medical cannabis, are authorized and legal in the UK where I'm based. And I'm using a combination of both under the form of drops. I'm not smoking joints or anything, just basically oil drops that I'm taking every day and every night. And I'm using small doses of levodopa before going to bed and during the night. So it is really interesting that actually, if you find yourself tossing and turning during the night, you may just not reconcile it immediately with your Parkinson's symptoms. You may not have tremors. You may just feel uncomfortable, trying the left side, the right side, the back, the front, and then you just basically rotate nonstop for an hour and find out that actually you're not sleeping at all. Now, when the first signs of waking appear during the night, I'm taking 25 milligrams of cinnamon at a very low dose, and that just basically quietens me magically. It was also recommended by Professor Michael Okun, who you can see also on the No Silver Bullet YouTube channel. So this is really important. Be aware that actually sleeping pills have two big problems. Some of them contain antihistamine, and that can be bad for your symptoms, very bad. And the problem is those that work cannot be used in the long run because they tend to be addictive. So sleeping pills are not, unfortunately, or rarely, a simple solution for the long run. And I think that what I have there is far more healthier and lighter. Now, training my voice, this is something that I have failed to do over the last weeks. I must confess I'm not perfect. But what is important is to get an ENT to check your vocal cords, to see if there are damages to your vocal cords. That is really important. And then to reach out to a speech therapist, and then to do exercise every day, which I used to be doing and I should be doing again. Now, the next pillar, the first pillar is medication. The second one is exercise. The third one is nutrition. Now, I was lucky enough to find a Parkinson's specialized nutritionist in the UK, who is a relatively old lady. There are not many, unfortunately. And I opted for a no gluten, no alcohol, no dairy nutrition routine. Now, there is no research that says that gluten is bad for Parkinson's, but if you read about gluten, you may come to the same conclusion as I do. No alcohol, this is quite straightforward. Alcohol is a neurotoxin. This is not good. Even red wine has some good stuff, but you need to drink it so much of it to get it to be efficient that you become an alcoholic. So no alcohol. I will have half a glass of champagne for Christmas or New Year, but actually apart from that, I don't drink alcohol at all. And it's surprising how quickly you can get used to not drinking alcohol. And there are also more and more no alcohol alternatives available on the market. So no dairy. There is a known link to Parkinson's, dairy and Parkinson's. I think that actually, in fairness, it has been seen to be contributing to the emergence of Parkinson's, but it doesn't mean that actually no dairy will be better for your symptoms. So I'm doing this, but this is not something that is scientifically proven. So dairy can help you have Parkinson's, but once you have Parkinson's, dairy may not be bad. And also, for those of you who want to keep eating cheese and cream and ice cream, you should look into this aspect more closely, because not all dairy may be as bad. But personally, I took the view of no dairy. I substantially reduced sugar and fats and increased my intake of vegetables and fruits. So what is very important is that if you go back to, again, our YouTube channel, you will see a session on nutrition by Baz Bloom and another session on nutrition by Matthew Phillips, a New Zealand specialist of fasting and keto diets. And I would say that generally speaking, everyone agrees that a Mediterranean diet is the best diet for people who suffer from Parkinson's. So hence my intake of vegetables and fruits. I prioritize seasonal and organic fruits and vegetables, which basically also means I'm avoiding strawberries in December. If they are bright red in December, you may wonder why, and it's not natural. I fast during 16 hours a day. Fasting, if you go back to the video of Matthew Phillips that I just mentioned, is a very powerful tool He has done a medical trial with a small group. I think it was 18 people for 6 months. So it is not scientifically heavy enough to be as impactful as you would like. It should be more people for longer, but those things cost a lot of money. But he will convince you, I think, if you watch his video, that fasting and keto diets are definitely worth considering. Now, the fasting I do is 16 hours a day. So I'm basically having breakfast at 9, dinner at 5 p.m., and I don't touch any food between 5:30 and 9 o'clock the next day. So this is not too complicated, not too heavy. And as I said, if you want to convince yourself of the efficiency of this practice, please watch the video by Matthew Phillips. Now, I'm using all kinds of supplements. The ones I mentioned there are the ones that I feel are safe for everyone, like turmeric, omega-3, etc. Lion's mane and reishi mushrooms. There is a lot of research on that. I will let you just discover it by yourself. And a little tip for those of you who suffer from restless leg syndrome. If you have it, you will know what it is. If you don't know what it is, that's probably because you don't have it. So I found a cream in the UK that is based on magnesium that has been making really wonders and helping me get rid of that bad feeling of small cramps and movements in my legs during the night that were waking me up. And for those of you in the UK, which is only a small part of our group, there's a company called Simprove that have a liquid probiotic available here, which I think has helped play a great part in my digestion. I wouldn't say my symptoms, but my digestions. And we know that the gut is very closely linked to the brain, so this is important. Now, I use technology as well, and I've mentioned here a few things. This is the things that I said I'm doing, but I'm not saying you should be doing because there is insufficient medical proof of their efficiency, and this can be quite expensive. But I've been using red light therapy, which is a red light helmet, for a few years now. I had the opportunity to use a PDK laser for the gut by a company called Symbix. Symbix is worth watching because Symbix have done one thing that many others have not done in that part of the industry, is that they're financing medical trials. So I will keep you informed as they arrive, but I know that Symbix have been in touch with scientists, hospitals, and clinics in many countries in the world to establish rigorous medical testing of basically red light therapy or green light laser. I'm using a TENS machine. This is really because, as I told you, my hands are quite rigid and I have a real feeling of heaviness at night. So this is basically a small, inexpensive machine you can find on Amazon that basically stimulates your nerves through electrical current. I find it useful. This is more anecdotal, just to give you an idea of the things that are out there. Virtual reality. Well, for those of you who are getting sometimes bored with the routine of exercise, which is my case, from time to time, putting your virtual reality goggles and doing some of those activities, Sabre and Les Mills body combat, for instance, can be quite entertaining. And it's a way to keep fit and keep active while at the same time bringing a bit of change to your routine. The cross trainer is nice, but every day the cross trainer becomes a bit boring. And then this is not technology, but we didn't know where to put it. But actually, please consider opting for chemical-free detergents and toiletry products. If you listen to the specialists, you will see that they all agree that there are some major causes to Parkinson's. We don't know exactly why people have Parkinson's, but some of the causes are, of course, genetic. That's 15% of the population. Hits to the head for people who practice like American football, sports or similar, but also and mainly pollution and pollutants. And so opting for chemical-free detergents for washing your clothes and toiletry products such as deodorant and perfume, etc., is a healthy step. Now let's just talk about the mind here, and we're moving to a slightly different area, if you want, so slightly different considerations. I think that for me, one of the main things in my spiritual journey, if you want, has been to accept my condition. And that doesn't mean to be resigning myself to a negative future. It just means that accepting this is part of me, this is not me, but this is part of me, and I'm living with it. And I think that actually an important point for me was not letting the anxiety of the future ruin today. Now, my father had Parkinson's, and I had those pictures of him initially when I was diagnosed coming through my mind that were really very disruptive, where I could imagine myself lying on a bed, skinny and ready to die, or in a wheelchair, losing my mind. And through meditation and prayer, I learned not to fear PD. And interestingly, this did not happen through meditating specifically on that topic. It was more meditation in general, made me more peaceful, and those anxieties have disappeared. So it's really worthwhile. I will go back to that next page, but it's worthwhile keeping that in mind. So we spoke about medication, we spoke about exercise, we spoke about nutrition. Meditation is something that should not be overlooked. Exploring unresolved conflicts. Now, if you read the literature about this, you will see that a lot of illnesses have their roots in our past. It's not just about Parkinson's, it's about addictions, it's about cancer. We basically are impacted by the things that happened to us before we were grown up, and sometimes before we were born. I don't want to be taking a too much divergent approach, but sometimes stress in a family, like Jewish families who were decimated during the Second World War, have passed that stress from generation to generation. So it's interesting to see that the people we are now are defined by not only your parents, but sometimes generations before. And I personally didn't do a full psychotherapy, but basically had a few meetings with the psychotherapist to identify situations with my mother and my father where the topic of basically forgiving and understanding was very important. And I think it has been quite healthy for me, Parkinson's or not, for my mind. And my wife was mentioning that some topics I was bringing up about my earlier life, I'm not talking about anymore, while I was talking about them a lot, which seems to confirm that I have indeed managed to assimilate and come to terms with some certain of these things. Now, this is a difficult one for me, trying to give up the right to be angry. Now, I don't get angry about important things. I get angry about stupid things like technology, my dictation that doesn't work and stuff like that. But I do get angry too much. It's not a helpful emotion. And, you know, when we basically here trying to stop drinking the poison of anger, it's something I have more work to do on, but I'm bringing it up because you may find it useful or it may echo your own situation. And then accepting the right to be happy. Now, I've dedicated a lot of my time and my life to my family in the past, putting myself in brackets, if you want. And I have learned to put myself a bit more at the center, and basically putting myself first is not selfish, and it's important. So being able to enjoy life, for me, it is nature, my family, traveling. And as I said, I started building a family tree, and I find it extremely enjoyable. So those activities where you focus on yourself are really important. And finally, here, being nice to yourself and accepting that your best is good enough is important. And for me, that was difficult because I had always been a perfectionist. And nowadays, a lot of things take more time than they used to, or I don't do them as well as I used to, but you have to be tolerant with yourself. Now, let's just look into meditation, exactly what I'm doing. This is an example because there are a lot of meditation practices around the world, I would say thousands and thousands. And what I'm doing should just be an example, and you should not necessarily look to replicate that because you need to find your own meditation environment. So it's about cooling the engine, reducing the stress and anxiety, and stimulating brain plasticity. So I had never meditated until 5 years ago. It's not like it wasn't part of me. But I found that doing it every day, which I do for an hour, has been extremely helpful. I use a relaxation technique. I use Qigong. I use Indian meditation and breathing exercises. But if you have never meditated before, I would suggest considering to use Headspace, an app that is basically available on all app stores. That can be a good starting point. Or finding a meditation group in your region around you. To be able to go and not be on your own in your room, but rather to be meeting other people who come to meditate as well. Now, praying is something that is very personal, but I think it falls into the same category. I'm not going to talk too much about that. It's quite personal, and everyone will have their own views on this. But I think it's for me, it has been quite important. And then being thankful. Now, this is basically important. My heart is beating every day. If it stopped for a minute, I would be dead. My body is breathing. If it stopped for a minute, I would be dead. And yet this is something we don't realize. We see the tremors, we see the cramps, we see the small things that are making your life more difficult. But being thankful for some of the basic things that are happening to us is critical. And then helping others. So this was for me an important step in my journey. A few months after being diagnosed, I realized there was a risk of being so focused on myself that I would be self-centered and selfish. That's the reason why a friend of mine and me created No Silver Bullet for PD, which is a Parkinson's support group. Now, for your information, No Silver Bullet for PD has around 30 videos on important topics related to Parkinson's. And we have had 800,000 views already of our videos in 3 years. So 800,000 views, it just shows you, and that gives me some pride and satisfaction that actually it's not just about me, it's about the way I can help others. And that is therapeutic on its own. And then I would say to wrap up, I stay informed more than most people because I produce all those videos on TikTok, Instagram, and I interview people on YouTube. I tend to read everything there is about Parkinson's. If you are of course all on the PD Buddy app. If you go to the Keep Learning section, you will see this is probably the best place where you can find daily updates that will give you inspiration about this disease. It will help you understand the new developments. It will just tell you, for instance, that levodopa at the moment is being studied in different ways, in different formats. So for instance, today I published a video about levodopa being injected directly into the brain. There's a team of scientists in France who are doing that. That's something I want to keep an eye on. I don't need it now, but maybe one day I will see that my levodopa doesn't fulfill me anymore, and I will need to find new ways through pumps through the stomach, or through pumps through the skin, or through pumps to the brain to deliver that levodopa in a more continuous way. So I hope I will never need that, but I want to know about those things. Now, frankly, some of you are very early journey, and I found that many Facebook saying, I would just caution you about that because if you see that the pages you're watching are about people who say, my husband has hallucinations, and you have 10 people who basically say, yes, mine too, me too, mine too, me too, mine too, me too, you will not have learned anything really. You will just feel depressed, and you will basically see it as something that will be hitting you one day while it may never happen. So I think it's important to be informed, but it's also important to stay away from basically forums that could be a source of worry and about the future more than anything else. And then last, I'm very fortunate to have a loving wife and children, and I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for them, because the routine I'm subjecting myself to every day is nice, but actually I don't do that just for me. And interestingly, Laurie Michel, who is a very famous American naturopath, and Laurie Michel has a video, of course, also on No Silver Bullet, has looked at what people who do well with Parkinson's, what are they doing? So this is Laurie Michel's video. And one of the things she basically noticed is that people who are isolated or lonely tend to have a worse evolution of their Parkinson's, and loneliness is one of the worst, the worst predictors of a bad evolution of Parkinson's. So we're talking about medication, we're talking about exercise, we're talking about nutrition, meditation, but the social aspect is very important. And I know this is not something that you can necessarily do on your own, but apps like PD Buddy allow you to connect to other people. And if you're lonely, to connect with people who you will basically make friends with over time. And then lastly, this is, so 7 o'clock wake up, military style. I don't need the clock, I wake up quite naturally. I do those mental exercises in the morning before breakfast. As I said, I put my red light therapy hat on at the same time. Meditation in the morning, autogenics and Qigong, a bit of free time and admin time, physical exercise, strength and stretching, hands exercises, lunch, red light therapy, 10 short nap, and then physical exercise, free time, a long bath, dinner, meditation, and I should go back to that voice exercises. So that gives you an idea of the whole routine. Now, I hope this was useful to all of you. I will stop the recording, and I will leave you to that to bombard me with questions and suggestions.